And Amy, and why are cases spiking in places like California and Florida, Texas, Arizona? Is that the question we should be asking, or should the question we're asking is why are people surprised at something that was anticipated coming to pass? For more on perhaps that second question, we're pleased to be joined by Dr. Jeff Barke, who is a primary care physician in Orange County, CA. Dr. Barke, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good morning, Chicago.
Good morning.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so you're seeing case spikes in Orange County. Why is that? And does it come as a surprise to you?
It's no surprise to me. California was relatively spared early on, as were other states like Arizona. So as we open up the economy, there's no surprise that we're seeing increase in cases. Remember, California was also locked down pretty strictly. So we had very low cases. We were locked down, and now we're going about our business. So we would expect to see the number of cases increase, but it makes for great headlines to make that as if it's a surprise and that we should be fearful or scared of it.
Is there a concern about the healthcare infrastructure in Orange County being overwhelmed by the increase in cases?
No, there's really not. The healthcare infrastructure here is doing just fine. And of course, with increased cases, we are going to see more hospitalizations. The good news is we are much better at treating this virus than we were just a few months ago. So the length of hospitalization has decreased. The number of patients that enter the hospital and then ultimately enter the ICU has decreased as well. So once again, this is expected. It should not be feared. But that being said, yes, this is a very deadly virus, and those that are most vulnerable need to be protected.
You said that you're getting patients out of the hospital quicker. What are you doing differently? Is there something different than, remdesivir, or is that what you're using?
Well, remdesivir is certainly one of the treatment options. I don't actually take care of patients in the hospital. I'm an outpatient physician, but I see a lot of COVID patients as an outpatient. I've been very fortunate. Not one of my patients has ended up in the hospital, and not one of my patients have died from COVID. I think in part because when I treat very early in the course of the illness when there's mild symptoms. And I think that's the difference between somebody doing poorly and somebody doing well with this virus.
Well, what do you give them? Is it a steroid shot or a Z-Pack, or is
No,
it different
no shot.
for each person?
I use a variation on the Zelenko protocol, which is hydroxychloroquine, zinc, and a Z-Pack. If somebody has significant respiratory symptoms, then I add a steroid. And recently, I've switched over to an inhaled steroid known as budesonide, which is a cheap, old asthma drug that Dr. Bartlett out of Texas has been using with 100% success rate.
And dexamethasone, does that come into play?
It does. So dexamethasone, there was a study out not long ago that showed dexamethasone reduces hospitalization rates and reduces the chances of somebody dying. That drug is more used in the inpatient critical care setting, but almost any type of steroid you use, be it prednisone, a Medrol dose pack, hospitalization with dexamethasone, or now the inhaled budesonide, make a difference with the cytokine storm, the inflammatory reaction that the body has to this virus.
I think after this conversation, I'm ready to take the boards. So, doctor, let me ask you something. Based on what you were saying, you're describing the reality on the ground in Orange County. That does not square with either the rhetoric or the decisions that have been made by Governor Newsom to enter California into a second shutdown, does it?
Yeah, well, my governor is worse than your governor.
I don't
So no.
It's a bit of a personal privilege thing. We like to make sure we have the worst governor in the country. But all right, go ahead. Make your case.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. I don't believe there's any need to re-shut down our economy. It didn't work the first time around, and why would we expect it to work the second time? What a healthy society does is the following. We protect the most vulnerable. We know who's at risk for this, and that's the elderly and those with significant pre-existing conditions. So we protect the most vulnerable. Those that get ill, we isolate. And the rest of us, we allow to go about our business with maximum liberty, with common sense precautions. So this nonsense that we should stop church gatherings again, while in our state, my governor's worse than your governor, marijuana dispensaries remain open, liquor stores remain open, while we're not allowed to worship, go to church, or gather in a restaurant, as if that's the reason why this virus is spreading.
I know it's all arbitrary. I mean, you could be on a plane with 200 people, but you can't be at church with 50 or less people. It made no sense. But aren't you glad you live in Orange County instead of LA? Because in Orange County, 28 schools there have agreed to go back to in-person learning. They're not going to social distance, and they're not going to wear masks. Do you think that's going to increase the number of cases?
I don't. There's a study out of Germany that looked at reopening of schools. They assessed over 2,000 students and teachers out of 13 different schools, and they showed that children really aren't this major spreader of the virus, and children don't spread the virus from themselves to a teacher. I heard somebody say recently that Orange County is the Sweden of California.
Yeah,
so if that's true,
so true.
We're happy to be that.
What about your colleagues, whether in Orange County or around the state or even around the country, your medical colleagues? What's sort of the prevailing opinion within your professional cohort, those you have professional relationships, about the handling of this and about the coverage of the handling of this as you look at locality to locality, state to state?
Well, I think it's varied, but physicians in general aren't ones that want to speak out and be public about this. So many of my colleagues are just kind of being quiet, going about their business. They don't want to really get involved in the political aspect of this virus. But I think many of them agree that our reaction to this virus is too much being driven by fear and not enough being driven by just some common sense things that we can do.
He is Dr. Jeff Barke, primary care physician in Orange County. Dr. Barke, thanks so much for your time and insights. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.